The Examination by Felix C. Gotschalk. This is among my personal favorite science fiction stories from the 1970s and possibly in the genre's entire history. Its author was first and foremost a psychologist. All of his science fiction writing appeared between 1974 and 1989. This story was among his first and was originally published in New Dimensions 4, edited by Robert Silverberg. 3 years later, it was republished in a massive and highly recommended anthology called Introductory Psychology Through Science Fiction. Then again in a French anthology called Univers 15 in 1978, and then again the next year when Silverberg chose to include it in his Best of New Dimensions. So far as I can tell, it never appeared in a collection of the author's own work. Read by Daryl T. Smith II for my channel, Quasar Spectra. A brief introduction by the editor, Robert Silverberg. This one came in unsolicited sometime in 1973, along with several other stories by the same author, all meticulously typed in some sort of futuristic IBM face, and all full of the damnedest cold, cockeyed technological jargon. I realized after just a few pages that the writer was controlling the jargon and not vice versa, and that in fact I had stumbled onto one of the great originals of science fiction. Gotschalk turned out to be a psychologist from North Carolina with, at least in his correspondence, a well-developed appreciation of his own many excellences. Though I've never met the man, I do suspect that Gottschalk's high level of self-esteem is altogether justified. I chose to introduce him with two stories at once in New Dimensions 4, and since he was remarkably prolific, he has had a story in nearly every issue of New Dimensions since. He had sold a few stories, I think, before I began buying his work, and by now has appeared fairly widely in science fiction, publishing a novel or two and a bunch of shorter pieces. People are starting to notice what he can do. While I doubt he will ever be a very popular author, his vocabulary is too idiosyncratic for that, he's certainly going to be a respected one, and, if it can be done, an imitated one. New Dimensions has published the work of a lot of unknown writers, but I think of Gotschalk in particular as my special editorial discovery. The Examination. The small black child sat on the white vinyl chair and gave off an aura of coal stove smoke and lard. Her wool coat was too hot, but she kept it on. A waxy sleeper stuck in the corner of her eye, and she sniffled productively. "Do you want a Kleenex?" the examiner asked, an edge of weariness showing through his overt kindness. "Nah," the girl said softly. The examiner took one of the 1906 Binet forms from a stack atop a cabinet and sat down across the desk from the girl. The form bore 1937 and 1960 restandardization copyright dates. "Do you feel all right today?" he asked. "Yeah." The reply was flat. "Do you have to go to the bathroom?" "No." The examiner pushed the Binet form across the waxed formica surface to the girl. "The first thing I'd like for you to do is write your name right here." The girl took the pencil, rotated the page 90 degrees starboard, and wrote left-handed straight down the line, right at her navel. Her pencil grip was crab-like, even hemiplegic, but she printed Pamela well enough, adding a very slight stylistic flourish to the final A. The examiner took the form once more and filled in several blanks with a ballpoint pen. "Let's see," he said. "Today is April the 17th, 1974, and when is your birthday?" "I don't know," the girl said faintly. Let's see again. Here it is. You were born February the 1st, 1966. So you are 8 years and 10 months. The examiner wrote 8-2 in the chronological age blank. And you're a girl, he chuckled in a friendly tone. I'll put that down. He printed NF for Negro Female. Where do you live, Pamela? You know that Watt house over there? The child pointed out the window. I think so. The examiner was used to responses like this. I live on a dirt road. What school do you go to now? South Main Jones. And what grade are you in? Third. Did you go to kindergarten? I went to Hadestadt. What's your daddy's name? The dark face brightened at the question. I got me 2 daddies. Yay, good. The examiner fell in easily with the drift of the response. Are they good to you? Yeah. The examiner scanned the referral sheet for the name of the child's mother, Patricia Ann Tuggart Owen Rakes. What kind of work does your daddy do? He breaks up rocks at the quarry. Do you have any special hobbies or things you like to do a whole lot? I likes to watch TV. What shows do you like best? The girl looked thoughtful. The examiner had his head down when the child's pupils swam away into pinheads, glowed a fiery white for half a second, then returned to wet black and brown cow eyes. I likes Gilligan's Island and the Flintstones, the girl said. Do you have to do any work around your house? I have to wash dishes sometimes. Do you get some money to spend sometimes? Yeah. What do you like to buy with money? Candy. The examiner filled in his name on the Binet face sheet. Paul Mac Grassy, ED.D. He looked at his Nevada Gretchen. It read 922. Better get on with it, he thought. Well, I'm supposed to try you on a few little tests today to find out something about how much you know, how smart you are. Is school hard for you or easy? Hard. Well, let's try a few of these test things. Some of them are questions, talking. Then there are some pictures and puzzles that are sort of fun. The girl shifted in the chair and took off her coat. The examiner thought the girl's movements to be fluid and smooth and rapid. He began the testing. I want to find out how many words you know. Listen, and when I say a word, you tell me what it means. What is an orange? A fruit, she replied. Right. What is an envelope? For a letter. The examiner rummaged in a drawer for a cigar. A sensor pad extended from the child's brow, rotated briefly, and retracted into the wiry black hairs. A few feet away, under a corner of the carpet, a roach suddenly ate its brood and felt its tropisms waver. The examiner looked back at the Binet text. The next word is straw. What is a straw? You suck it. What is a puddle? A puddle of water. And let's see here. The next word is tap. What does that word mean? You make a little noise. Good. A little noise. Gown. What is a gown? A nightgown. The next word is roar. What does roar mean? Noise. Well, there are lots of kinds of noises. What would you say about roar to tell exactly what it means? The child looked steadily at the examiner. Ain't noise right? Grassy glanced at the text and saw the one-word response, noise, was a plus score. Well, that's good enough. Let's try some more. Eyelash. What is that?
Hair that protects your eyes, the girl said fairly quickly.
Gracie now knew that the child was probably average in mental abilities, having scored successes with vocabulary terms standardized on population samples of 8-year-olds. Well, you're pretty good at this. You say school is hard for you?
Sometimes.
Do you try hard?
Not all the time.
Well, the next word is, let's see, Mars. What is Mars, anyway?
A planet.
The child put a small hand on the desk and some formica molecules sundered deep in their microcosms. No blood vessels were visible in the child's hand. Juggler is the next word, the examiner said.
A juggler is a man that juggles balls up and down.
Scorch. What does scorch mean?
To burn,
Pamela said in a clearing and increasingly perky voice. Aft of her dextromastoid, an auxiliary cardiac pump puckered, and hot proline surged across her synapses. Gracie knew now that the girl had passed vocabulary items designed for random samplings of 11-year-olds. He began to feel that the girl might be a sleeper, a bright but dull-acting child. He leaned in closer to her and locked in steady eye contact. He started just slightly. The girl's eyes dilated quickly like an owl's. He looked closer. The black parts of your eyes are big, he said gently and interestedly. Do you have good vision and hearing? Pam smiled engagingly with a charming glimmer of shyness and said yes. Her eyes fell on a wart in the web of Gracie's hand. Her eyeballs ellipsed to 50 power magnification and 100 candle power. The wart looked like a raised crater stuffed with pointed fleshy buds. She beamed in a microlaser at the precise azimuth, and the wart spores withered and disappeared. Gracie did not see the wart wink out of existence. It looks like you're going to be extra smart, Pam, he said. You know some hard words for a girl your age. Let's try a few harder ones. How about lecture? Have you ever heard that word?
A speech, came the reply.
Right, a speech. Very good. Now, what is skill? Skill.
Something you do real well,
Pam said, brightening perceptibly. Hey, you get better as you go along, Gracie said, with more enthusiasm than he usually expressed. Do you have any special skills? Things you do well? The girl's memory trace engrams flashed in the subvocal input 3D kinesthetic chess, but she looked neutrally at Gracie and said no. Well, how about this word? It is brunette. Do you know what that is?
Black hair like mine.
Pam seemed to give off some coy femininity. Right, Gracie said. How about muzzle?
What you put on a dog's face.
How do you know that word?
A lady cross our road had to put one on her dog 'cause it was mean.
The girl had reached a vocabulary level of 12 chronological years, and Gracie was beginning to be impressed and vaguely disquieted. Haste is the next word, Pam, he said with an edge of expectancy and diffuse concern. Do you know what that is?
Hurry,
the girl said, and Gracie sensed a whisker of mockery in her voice. The room temperature had risen to 70.4, and an all but imperceptible hum was flickering at his auditory limens. Here's a hard one, and it's hard to say. Peculiarity. Anyone ever tell you that word? Pam's lips parted to reveal serrated teeth. She closed her mouth quickly and gave Gracie a shy and unguarded look.
Yes, she said thoughtfully. That means rare or queer. Alternate synonyms, Gracie thought. This little thing is at least superior.
Why did your parents want you to come and get tested? He asked, thumbing through the referral notes.
I really don't know, Pam said.
Gracie could not find the referral face sheet.
Now, I know I had that sheet. What did I do with it?
He looked up to see the girl looking at him quite intently. The look was instantly familiar. Bela Lugosi had greeted guests at Castle Dracula with the same vague expectancy. Gracie swathed off a nudging anxiety and returned to the Binet forms. What was the last word I asked you?
Peculiarity.
Yes, well, let's try priceless. Priceless.
Invaluable.
The reply was rapid and the vocal nuance distantly goading, as if Pam had advanced knowledge of the answers and was putting Gracie on. He looked searchingly at her. My dear girl, he said earnestly, I am amazed and gratified and puzzled by your knowing that word and by your giving a synonym. That's the most advanced way of responding to vocabulary tasks. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Pam dropped her chin and softly said yes.
I try to read a lot, she said, and I learn a lot from the Trivid and the tape banks.
Well, let's see how far you can go with the words. The next one is regard. What does regard mean?
You look at something.
Amazing, Gracie thought. How about tolerate?
Endure.
Here's a huge word. Disproportionate.
Out of size, out of shape.
Gracie realized that his mouth was gaping open and that his harsh marsh Maduro had gone out and was smelly. He lit the cigar and clenched it in his teeth. A diffuse wreath of smoke floated toward Pam and then stopped inches from her face. The force field isomorph read the smoke's particulate locus, and Pam marveled why humanoids chose to ignite dried leaves and allow the combusted cell's smoke to play among the lungs and the sinus pockets and the olfactory shafts. Pam had now defined Binet vocabulary words as well as average adults, and an extrapolated IQ on this one parameter would translate to 170 plus. Gracie truly prized bright kids, bright adults, anybody who showed the secret hand clasp responses which betokened optimal brain cell number, configuration, and condition. He was rarely, if ever, threatened intellectually. Now Pam grew more adult and supra-adult every minute. Have you ever heard your voice on tape? He asked her.
No.
You're doing so very well that I'd like to record some of the things you say, okay?
Okay.
He flicked the cassette on and palmed the record slot. Here's a short word. Lotus. What's that?
A plant, a Chinese plant, and an English racing car.
How about shrewd?
Discerning.
How the goddamn mother hell could an 8-year-old humanoid know that word? Gracie thought. Mosaic, he said in a fringed stentorian tone.
An art form in which pictures or designs are made with stone, glass, or tile, or,
and here she looked vaguely professorial,
of or pertaining to Moses.
The response scored at Superior Adult Locus 2. Nobody ever gets this one, Gracie said. The word is stave.
A curved board in a barrel.
How in the world did you come to know a rare word like that? Gracie had a whining shimmer in his tone.
Definitive corollaries of linguistic gestalten are, of course, a matter of public information.
Pam sounded robot-like. Grassy felt his jowls go flaccid and his eyes begin to blink. He felt strangely introversive. He thumbed the Norelco to rewind, then to stop, then to a replay. A 132 cycle hum spat through the mic speaker, and a wavering overlay of pulsating psychophysical tones contrapunted through the basal pitch. Pam's eyes glowed a soft luminosity, and antenna buds appeared at her parietal lobes. "You're an alien." Grassy tried to sound unafraid.
"Affirmative."
"What do you want?"
"I want to continue the evaluation."
"You want to define the rest of the words?"
"Negative. I want to put the remaining words to you as a testee."
Pam's silver arm spread across the desk like a chrome piston and took the Benet text.
"First," she began, "is it true that humanoid language sounds evolved from the cries of animals?"
Grassy moved toward the door, but a mod-stun force field enveloped him. He felt as if he had walked into a warm gossamer membrane.
"Be seated, please," the girl said. "You are in no danger. No harm will come to you."
Grassy sat down, trembling. The girl vectored in a tranquilizing matrix of oxygen dilutants.
"Well," she said, "what is your response to my question?"
"I'm afraid I don't know. I guess I'm weak in the psycholinguistics bit."
"Is it true that what you term intelligence is assessed by psychologists through linguistic exchanges with the evaluees?"
"Yes," Grassy answered. "Although verbal expression or particular verbal facility is not a firm requirement, we can test mutes."
Pam's tungsten helices.
Word in ambergris gelatin. She scanned the remaining Benet word lists.
"How was word number 26 selected as a linguistic gestalton held to measure intelligence? The word is bewail."
"The words are weeded out on statistical difficulty curves during the test standardization process. Intelligent people seem to know harder words than unintelligent people. Bewail ranked as one of the tougher words because the standardization sample showed that a middle locus of superior adults knew the word."
"But since the term superior is taxonomic and dependent on performance, are you not talking circularly?"
Pam asked. Then she passed quickly on.
"What does the term mean to you?"
she asked Grassy. Grassy realized that his daily access to test items had not made him as test-wise as he might have thought, and the realization was a kind of double-edged sword. The specificity of his own mental abilities seemed preserved, yet the blind spots he had were being revealed, i.e., access to intelligence tests had not made him any more intelligent. And, he thought, this is somehow goddamn good. Bewail means something like being sad, Grassy ventured.
Deplore, lament, bemoan, Pam said quickly. How about word number 27, ochre? O-cur.
That's a mythological monster, a kind of troll that lives under bridges, Grassy said, trying to be playful.
Pam smiled. I can read your ideational dynamics, your subvocal engrams, and I see much dissonance there. Cognitive dissonance, one of your colleagues has called it. You think and feel one way, look and act another, and talk yet another. Do you really know what the term ochre means?
As far as I know, it's a monster.
An earthly clay with iron ore in it, Pam said.
Oh, yeah, Grassy said. Now I remember. He dropped his cigar on the rug beside the telephone. As he bent to pick it up, he lifted the receiver from its cradle, knowing that the local operator would come on the line in a few seconds. Pam's ears had sprouted tufts of crystalline cilia, and her eyes rotated to show at least a dozen wetly glowing facets. Her lip line had become more compressed, like a surgical slash on a bloodless cadaver. Her teeth meshed together like ring gears. Grassy wondered if she actually ate, in the sense of placing foliage or flesh or carrion in her mouth and ingesting it in some way.
"What does repose mean to you?" she asked.
"To lie down, crap out, get supine," Grassy replied.
"Rest, inactivity, tranquility. How about ambergris?"
"Hello? Hello?" The switchboard operator's voice came on the phone. "Excuse me," said Grassy, and reached for the phone. He tried to tell the operator to ring the police, but Pam read his thoughts and masked out his laryngeal striations. Her arm telescoped across the desk, and her ball-socketed hand rotated to replace the receiver.
"My dear Dr. Grassy," she said, "I am totally superordinate in relation to you. Please permit me to complete the questioning. As a scientist, or a quasi or parascientist, perhaps you are interested in my motives. They include the assessment of humanoid verbalizations as they differ from their supposed ideational bases. In other words, I know what you are thinking. I want to hear what you say. Now, take this term ambergris.
It's a puller put in perfumes."
"True, but definitely diffuse. My databanks read the term as denoting a waxy gray substance excreted by sperm whales. It is actually an excretory lubricant."
"Limpet," Pam continued. Her voice had lowered and softened so that she sounded like the lonesome gal from old radio days. She still hummed softly like a diapason cipher. Grassy felt just enough playfulness to nudge against the force field periodically, but he also felt quiescent and interested in Pam the alien. Grassy gently rotated the waxed tips of his mustache with his thumb and forefinger. "Limpet, limpet. I believe that relates to a quiet pool, a limpid pool, a calm, dark pool."
"Shellfish, mollusks, conicals."
Pam sounded computerized again.
"Such a term is communicatively esoteric. Have you truly found that this is a utilitarian word? Do you need to know that the word denotes a generic group, a taxonomic cluster?"
Intelligent people often seem to know esoteric things, but the esoterior per se is defined as a statistical or actuarial norm. In other words, a person who is bright or who tests as being artifactually or psychometrically bright is not that way because he has scavenged for nits or groveled compulsively. He is rather like the TV receiving stations that monitored the 1970 moon landings. Powerful, rich, self-actualizing, high in perceptual sensitivity.
"You pretty well imply an hereditary or structurally invariant basis for intelligence," Pam said.
"We have wrangled over that for at least 70 years, Grassy said, half waving off the questioning nuance of the tone, "and never got it adequately resolved. Historically, aristocrats have claimed an attendant right to high intelligence, while the serfs assumed a yoke of stupidity. There were people who felt that they had no right to be bright because they were poor. There now seems to be a measurable hierarchy of intelligence groupings, which is only partially related to socioeconomic class." Pam seemed to listen attentively, her cilia waving like anemone sepals, and her eyes now showing a more assuring, humanoid warmth. Her charisma index wavered with her persona variations so that she seemed both child and god, both small and overpowering, both human and suprahuman.
What does frustrate mean?
To feel bugged, miffed, or irritated.
Foil, baffle, defeat, ineffectuate. Pam clacked out. Flaunt.
If you've got it, flaunt it, Grassy said in a weak camaraderie. I think it means something like bragging or teasing.
To make a gaudy, ostentatious, or defiant display,
the succinct definition clanked out again.
Incrustation, she continued neutrally.
Like barnacles all over a ship.
A hard outer layer or coating.
Grassy began to feel stirringly dumb.
Retroactive, Pam continued.
Applicable to recent events, like retroactive pay raises, Grassy said.
Having application to or effect on things prior to its enactment or effectuation.
Pam stood up. She was now about 6 feet tall.
Would you stand, please? She asked. I want to get your somatotype parameters and your brain mass relative to total organismic displacement.
Grassy got up awkwardly, his chair rolling off the beaverboard template and onto the red carpet. Pam now looked like the Statue of Liberty. Grassy felt the barely liminal comfort of the force field, as if he were dozing before a lingering hardwood fire. The alien seemed to center herself in front of Grassy, like a surveyor's rodman.
Be quite still, please,
she said, increasing the force field density. A segmented antenna appeared at her waistline, and she moved around the desk to Grassy's side. Standing closely ventral, she embraced him with 8 chrome pseudopods. His body was yoked to hers. He closed his eyes.
Do you feel anything when I do this? She asked, somehow sweetly.
No, he said. What is it you're doing?
Getting a holographic mold of your body. The pseudopods are vectoring in isomorphic tape measures, so to say. It will take just a few more seconds.
Grassy opened his eyes inches from the alien face. It was smooth, like wetly polished marble.
Your vertical spine and curved horizontal ribs must cause you discomfort, she said. Do you sometimes move like quadrupeds to ease the feeling?
No, never.
Did you evolve from quadrupeds?
I don't really know.
Do you ever regress to quadruped or anthropoid behaviors? For instance, do you groom or preen one another?
Occasionally, but such behaviors are considered in questionable taste.
Do you smell your armpits or axillary vellus areas?
Rarely, Grassy replied.
Are you capable of self-fellation?
An anatomic impossibility. But no, I recall one case reported by Kinsey of a man who utilized this method for several years.
Are you in any sense cloacal, like serpents?
No, but urinary fluids and seminal fluids do share a single distal ducting, so that we're probably more cloacal than we would care to admit.
Is it true that orgasm is held to be the pinnacle of humanoid experience?
I think yes. The pseudopods retracted, and Pam spun slowly, like a heavy periscope, and glided off a few feet.
Would you like to question me any more? She asked.
Grassy looked sheepish. I am too sedated to do much good. Do you fear capture by us?
No.
Pam sat down, and her appearance changed wispily.
I can alter my appearance from raw diffusion to lead monoliths. I am impervious to physical harm. You could not capture me. Come, complete the few terms left on the test, and you can ask me anything you wish." They sat in their original positions as testee and tester and exchanged long, neutral looks. "This is ironic or humbling or something," Grassy said. "My intelligence, however you wish to define it, plus my educational credentials and professional experience accord me a statutory sphere of competency and a certain implied superordinancy in assessing people's behaviors. I naturally bring this reinforced orientation to you, an overtly deprived member of a racial minority group, and you obliterate it as an alien. Now you want me back in the examiner's role. Do you feel sadistic motives?" "We feel no such motives. We have no need or wish to express aggression. Come, the appointment span will be over soon. Ask me the last few words and I will tell you something about my organismic grouping." Grassy looked half-heartedly at the Binet text. He felt like he was about to read the Reader's Digest to a national Mensa group. Word number 43 is philanthropy. Love of mankind, desire to help mankind, something that helps mankind. Piscatorial, of fishes, fishermen, or fishing. Milksop. Grassy felt disgusted and somehow ashamed. Unmanly man or boy. Mollycoddle. Sissy. "Do you have sexes among your people?" Grassy put in. "No, we do not reproduce. We are made of insoluble crystalline matrices, held in quasi-permeable colloid states by reverse parity." "Parity in the sense of right-handed and left-handed atoms?" "No." Pam smiled through her little girl physiognomy. "Two Oriental physicists won one of your prizes years ago by showing experimentally that atoms are not handed." "Are your crystalline units homogeneous? Are you reductionistic?" "Your celestial galaxy is a macrocosmic homology of our crystalline structures. We have homogeneity in the sense of spinning spheroids, a space medium or host environment, and inertias born of centrifugal force. Try the toughest Binet words. Harpy. Mythological bird-woman creatures perceived as an inverted major detail on card 9 of the Rorschach plates. How did you know that? It is bold in your subvocal engrams. Depredation, said Grassy. Plundering, laying waste, robbery. Perfunctory, done without care or interest or as a routine form. Achromatic, colorless. Do you have a light spectrum in your perceptual world? Grassy asked. Yes, Pam said, but we are able to see the bands of coloration all along the angstrom unit abscissa. You humans are really quite limited, what with your range of visible light equal to about 1/20th of the total actual light. For instance, I can see the alternating current in your stereo system, the radio waves in the atmosphere, as well as gammas and ultraviolets and all the rest. You are really unable to protect yourself from such things as X-rays. Casuistry is the next word, Grassy continued. He heard the muffled steps and voices of several people outside his door. Pam was fully in the guise of the little girl. Some sheriff's deputies are outside, she said. The switchboard operator got my wavelength when you picked up the phone receiver. These frequencies are enough to make birds wake up screaming and hippopotami burst from the surface of their quiet pools. Listen to me now. Don't make a fool of yourself. They will not believe you're reporting that I'm an alien life form. I can be totally Pamela. So be cool, as you say. And casuistry is a philosophical term denoting the solving of special cases of right and wrong in conduct by... A heavily authoritative knocking rang through the cheap beige paint and thin pine wood of the door. "Dr. Grassy, are you all right?" Grassy scrambled up from his chair and all but wrenched the plastic knob from the door. Two fatly dumb-looking deputies filled the framing space. "She's a goddamn alien!" Grassy sang out to the men, his arms flailing in air, his eyes white-wide and rolling. "She's got spaghettini oozing from her ears and an antenna in her navel. She's got teeth like bank vault hinges, her eyes glow like coals, and she's got 8 chrome-plated goddamn fucking arms." A small but determined social worker winced, then moved easily between the ballooning hulks of the deputies, and all but sprinted to the small, sobbing form of the dull-looking Negroid girl. "Look out!" Grassy trumpeted. "She's pure, raw, crystalline matrix colloid. She just looks like a little girl. Don't touch her, damn it!" He felt fingers big as hot dogs close around his arms, and he was held very firmly against a wall. "Man, this fox is really flipped," one of the deputies said, getting a ham-sized hand inside Grassy's Sansa belt. Pam was crying little shudders of fear and being hugged and cooed over by the social worker. "Idiots!" Grassy grated broken resonance at the gathering group of staff members. "I tell you, that little girl is an alien being. She is not humanoid. You can find out for yourself. Just take her clothes off. She's a labyrinth of data storage tiers. She knew every one of the goddamn benevolent vocabulary words." Pam was crying louder and being hugged closer. "Let's get this dude out of here," the deputy said. "He's blown all his fuses." They hustled Grassy down the hallway. "Homunculus!" he called back to Pam. "Homunculus! Tell them what that means, Pam. Sudorific! Sudorific! Parterre! Goddamn parterre! No priest prodding, none knocking fair, Pam! You didn't finish the test!" Grassy heard Pam's voice close at his ear as he was trundled into the car. Homunculus. A little man, dwarf, a model of a human body used for demonstrating anatomy. "See?" He sat up intently. "She knew those answers. She's talking to me now. I tell you, she's an alien organism." "Relax, Doc," the deputy said. "We'll get it all straight." Grassy jumped slightly as the alien voice returned. Sudorific, causing or increasing sweat. Parterre, part of a theater beneath the balcony and behind the parquet. "See? See?" Grassy said. "She's still talking. She knows about dwarfs and sweat and theaters. These are things most of us don't know about. Nobody ever gets those words right. You believe me, don't you?" "Sure, Doc," one of the men said. The deputies exchanged tight, knowing smiles as the car drove off.